Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our state legislative meeting. Good afternoon, colleagues. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. I will turn it over to our director, Melanie Winger, to go through the list of bills.
Great, thank you. So there's 3 agenda items today for the council to take up. And I think that the council staff put them in the reverse order that I put them in, and that's certainly fine with me. The 3 items are a list of draft capital projects for FY23 for potential state investment. Why are we making a bigger deal about this year is because the state is sitting on a lot of unanticipated cash that they didn't anticipate and haven't programmed yet, and not just a lot, an historic amount, in addition to the fact that the infrastructure bill, the federal infrastructure bill, will also provide the state with at least $2.9 billion. So that's one item. The next item is a letter that I think you all approved to include on this agenda today. It's going to need some revisions, but we'll talk about that when we get there. And then the list, a list of about half of the local bills. We'll bring you the other half on December 6th. So as far as the capital list, I think that all of you have had a chance to look it over. I do have support with me today. There's a number of people from the Office of Management and Budget, Josh Waters, Mary Beck, and some others who can go into additional detail about the projects. I've kind of categorized them in 3 areas. What I would describe as major projects, which include, for example, the Criminal Justice Center, which is $74 million. But these are major projects that we want to make sure that the state delegation knows are in the works. And if there's opportunity to advance funding for these projects this year, we would certainly be glad to receive that. And then the next section is just some kind of smaller denomination projects that I know about or came out of the executive branch. And again, we would anticipate that the council may have some additions to that, or I've heard from legislators about that they would like to have them placed on the county list. Such as the Olney Theater, which I think most of you know that is known as a statewide asset. It's not just considered a local asset. And so that's on there. And then some projects that are also already kind of in the queue. And those are 2 Montgomery College projects that we know are already in the queue for FY23. I'd like to just make one note about the public school construction section on the projects that are quote unquote in the queue. You might look at that number and go 45 million, that seems a little low. The only reason that number is as it is, it's based on the governor bringing in what he says he includes in the CIP every year, which is $250 for the traditional program. And we know that another $40 million is mandated for the enrollment growth and relocatable classroom program. So literally, I got to that number of 45, which is low, and we would certainly hope to do better than that. By applying traditional percentages to those numbers. So that's where the list stands right now, and be glad to turn it over to answer questions or try and answer them myself or listen to potential additions about the list.
Council President, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. I can't see everyone on one screen yet, hopefully soon, but so either speak up or raise your hands. We'll be informal today, but I don't have any requests to speak, Mel, so.
Okay.
Question.
Yep. Go ahead.
Thank you. I presume we don't need to prioritize these. It's an extensive list that we're providing. Do you have any sense of magnitude here as to how many projects are we going to get partial funding towards many projects? We're likely to have everything put towards a couple. Any comments there?
I would just note that I don't think the executive branch prioritize these projects. It's literally, I wrote them on a list, so they are not prioritized on the document that you have. I think it would be, a decision if you decided you wanted to prioritize them. But again, in fact, a couple of them really probably are not really queued up till FY24, but given the opportunity that exists, they're on there anyway. So I think that would be be left up to you if you would like to establish a priority, or just go ahead and send in the list to the delegation. And it's going to be an ongoing conversation. This is just the start of, an ongoing conversation that's going to take place.
Okay. So this would be resolved during the upcoming budget process with the state. It's not, this isn't something happening imminently.
That's correct. We do have requests in for a couple projects. For example, the Criminal Justice Center, there has been a meeting with the Department of Budget and Management over the summer about that project. And we're trying to get a meeting with the Department of Budget and Management about the Restoration Center in hopes his budget, which always creates an advantage for any state capital project, to go ahead and have the governor included in his capital budget requests. But because of the state's financial position this year, we're just, if that doesn't happen, it doesn't mean that there's still not opportunity to make progress, even on some of the big projects. But the big projects are big, and we would hopefully expect to see them in an administration budget at some point.
Right. Okay. So you need a motion to approve the list of capital projects as priorities, right?
I believe so.
So moved.
Councilmember Reamer moves. Councilmember Katz seconds. All those in favor of this list of capital projects, please raise your hand. Terrific. That is.
Aye.
That was unanimous.
Okay. Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Right. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the letter. And I know that it's going to need some revisions based on the draft that you saw, because that office has been created by the administration, which it was news to us. So I would let Linda McMillan or Leslie Fry pick up from here and talk about the types of revisions that we want to probably make to that letter.
Leslie?
Sure, I'm happy to go. So OIR was strategizing about how to engage the state with our county's work on migrant asylum-seeking children and families, which many of you heard about this morning. And so we identified a bill that passed last session. It was chapters 674 and 675, and it created a governor's office of immigrant affairs at the state level. And so as drafted, you can see in the packet, the letter was advocating for the governor to staff the office and fully fund it. As these things go, we found out after the packet was assembled that the office has been established and that they hired a director and are working on staffing it up. So Linda McMillan and I have agreed to revise the letter to encourage to thank the governor for staffing the office and encourage him to fully fund it in order to have its capabilities, fully operationalized. And so, we are in the process of revising that. Linda, do you have anything to add?
I would just say the legislation calls for like a system of neighborhood centers and increases in ESOL and workforce development. And so it's really beyond just having staffing, which is great that he's moved forward with staffing it, but it's really, the letter would be revised to be really clear that what we're really requesting is really robust funding to get all these programs and initiatives underway as quickly as possible.
Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you. Yeah, I would definitely support making sure that all of that is included. We just had a very robust joint session with the HHS and Education and Culture Committee this morning, talking about what the county needs to do in order to establish a more scalable and centralized and holistic support system for newcomers. But any help and direction from the state is going to be important. I think that's why this legislation was so much more comprehensive. And it would be, I think, very timely for us to emphasize how important those other components actually are.
Agreed. Anybody else? Okay.
Okay, so then I think we would anticipate airing a new draft with you all in the next couple of days that reflects the sentiment of the group and Councilwoman Navarro. So the third item on the agenda is local and bi-county bills. And it is pretty much the Kathleen Boucher show. These are all been assigned to hers. Plus the council has also provided comments that I know that they will want to share with you as well about suggested recommendations for positions on the bills. The document that you do have before you provides summaries of those pieces of legislation and also includes a line about the county executive's position on the legislation. So I think, depending on how the council staff would like to handle it, we are glad to describe the bills and then have the council staff describe or talk about what recommendations they would make to you as far as a position.
I think as a frame of reference, Mel and council members, the chart that's there on page 12 is probably a great place just to start.
Okay.
Whether Kathleen or Mel want to start with the positions, and then I can fill in with council staff's position. I will say it's probably roughly around 12 bills, and many of our positions consider a hold. There are one or two positions where we've agreed on, and then one where a few where council executive is supports, and we've recommended a hold. But I think it's best just to start on that chart and kind of work our way through it.
That makes complete sense. Looking
Okay.
for what the first bill is.
Now, should I get started on MC 222?
Please, thank you.
That's good.
Okay. All right. So this first bill relates to law enforcement officers and use of body-worn cameras. It came in drafted in a confusing way and applying to a number of topics, but to summarize it at this stage, the sponsor, Delegate Moon, intends to amend the bill to apply only to municipalities and only to require that municipal law enforcement agencies implement body-worn camera programs by the same date that Montgomery County must do so, which is July 1, 2025, under last year's Police Accountability Act. And county executive supports the bill with the sponsor's amendments. But Dean, I don't know, Ms. McCartney Green, I don't know if you wanted to speak to council's thoughts on each of them.
I'm definitely going to invite our analyst as well, Susan Farag. But our position here is to hold the bill pending more information around the fiscal impact and the positions of municipalities as well. And so at this point, council staff does not have a position on it so far.
Chairman Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I think that makes sense. And since this is only going to, the way that this has been changed, it's only going to affect the municipal police forces. I think it's only fair that we hear from them, though I don't know that I'm certainly in agreement that they should have to have the body-worn cameras the same time that Air Police Force does. But I do think it's out of common courtesy that we certainly hear from them before we make a recommendation. Thank you.
Right. We obviously have to have the fiscal note and hear from them. But I'm just curious, are any of those municipalities moving toward implementing body-worn cameras before 2025, given that the county has had our program in place for a long time?
Rockville has them. I'm not sure about the other municipalities.
All right, I thought so.
I think Gaithersburg has them now. Whether everyone has one, I don't know, but I think that they do as well. But there again, we should get that information and figure it out from there.
Sure. Okay. All right. We can probably move on. Thanks.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh, Councilmember Jawando. Sorry.
Councilmember Reeson and I had their hands up, but I
Oh,
don't know.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I can text you. I was just trying to be fancy and use the feature here. But so just wanted to ask for, on the policy, I think absolutely municipalities should do the same as state law, if not sooner. I think, have body-worn cameras like we do in Montgomery County for the police department. The question is the timing of this to get that information back or feedback back is what I always am confused about this with these bills. Is timing an issue? I don't think so at this point. We'll have enough time to give a response back, correct?
So the bills are going to be up for public hearing in Rockville or in the county by the state delegation on December 13 and December 15. So it would be ideal, if we had information so that you all were able to determine a position by then. If not, well, that's life. We will work with that. But
Okay.
in an ideal world, you'd have decisions by then.
So yeah, that would just be I hope that we could do that. I think we have one more of these or two more of these. So hopefully we can do that. Okay.
You have one more on December 6th.
Okay. So that would just be my request to Council President, if we could try to do that. Thank you.
Agreed. So the staff heard that, and we can always call more. But before that deadline, we'll have another opportunity. Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, just two quick things. One, I'm a little confused as to why only municipalities in Montgomery County, and why this would be a local bill. I mean, obviously, if there are body-worn camera requirements statewide, we would want them to apply to all municipalities. Our residents cross into Prince George's County quite a lot. We certainly can't control what happens in the District of Columbia or in Virginia, but so it'd be just helpful to understand, how that is working. I mean, we're very similar to Prince George's in the structure of our municipalities in many ways. They have a number of municipalities with their own police departments, as we do. So I think that would be helpful to understand when we get this back. I think we all are generally in agreement at a high level, but I think it'd be helpful to just understand how that would all work. And then just related to the last piece from a process standpoint, I just want to go on record. I've said this repeatedly. I'll say this again. I don't think we have to make a final decision before the public hearing. In fact, I think the public hearing could be helpful for the council as a body to understand public issues, concerns, amendments, other things before we take a position. I actually think it's helpful in many bills, particularly ones that are a little bit more nuanced than others, for us to wait until the public hearing. I'm not sure that the public wants to hear from us on what we think on a bill. It should be the other way around. We should be hearing from the public, and providing, our views based on what our constituents feel and how it impacts the county. So I just wanted to note that. I know we've had this discussion quite a bit, but I'm not sure I totally agree with the deadline being the public hearing. I think the deadline is when the movement in the General Assembly occurs. And so I think that, we ought to take the time that we need, listen to residents and other relevant stakeholders, including agencies and, impacted municipalities, and then, ultimately share with the delegation in a time that they can actually make a decision before they vote. So just wanted to note that. Thanks.
Hey, Mel, just a quick question on that. I would agree with you generally, but don't they vote at the same time in the delegation of whether to move it forward? In that?
No, what they're typically going to do is refer the bill to one of the House delegation committees to then kind of work session the bill.
Okay. So yeah, I just think it needs to be before that period. It needs to be before they vote, yeah.
Right. It's that's a legitimate course. It's a totally legitimate, and again, not the first time we've had that discussion. So if that's the will of the body, that's definitely, we'll work with it.
So everyone agrees that's the norm. Good to hear from the public first, and the delegation would get to hear from us before they make their decision. Council Vice President Albornoz.
Thanks. There are also practical considerations here, and it would be helpful for us, to hear specifically from the municipalities on their ability to implement, from a budgetary standpoint, from a training standpoint. I think it just would be a reasonable courtesy, as the chair said, to get feedback from them, not on if, because we all agree on implementation. Obviously, it's the law, but more of the when, as opposed to just prescribing without that consideration, just because we want to set up everybody for success here. So those are just my 2 cents. And generally speaking, when discussing municipal issues, I think that should be a standard practice.
Yeah. Okay, so we're holding this one.
Okay.
Next.
Sarah?
Good afternoon. Hi. The next bill is MC 322, which is speed and school bus monitoring systems. A local bill requiring MCDOT in conjunction with SHA to construct a median divider on state roads with 2 or more traffic lanes in each direction, and which register in a 12-month period more than 1,000 school bus camera violations for vehicles traveling in the opposite direction. Remembering, of course, under state law, motorists have to stop for school buses with its lights flashing on roadways that do not have concrete dividers. Paint doesn't protect. Montgomery County would be directed to use school bus camera violation revenues to pay for the cost of constructing the median dividers. That cost would be shared equally with SHA. If the funds are insufficient, SHA would be directed to pay the remaining cost. MCDOT has reviewed this bill, and Emil and Willannon and Hannah are on this call if you have specific questions that you want to ask of the department. But they've reviewed this bill and they don't have a specific position on speed cameras, but there's been concern expressed about how the bill is drafted. We've spoken with the county executive about it. He has not taken a position yet, pending further discussion. We've reached out to Delegate Moon. He said he agreed to meet with us. We're hoping that that's going to happen at 2 o'clock tomorrow. But I'm looking at his email, and he says he believes constructing medians need to be a hardwired policy preference here, even if we build in flexibility. So MCDOT just pointed out some things about the logistical challenges for some of the roads to have concrete barriers, the issue of how the money for these citations goes to the county. The county then remits a portion of those revenues to MCPS. MCPS has the contract running through them for school bus cameras. All school buses are equipped with these cameras at this point. And FYI, there were more than 25,000 citations issued from January 1st until November the 1st for these violations. But the revenues are remitted, a piece of them, to MCPS so that they can pay the vendor. The rest of the revenues go into the general fund. I don't yet have a number for how much money we're talking about, but whatever that is, I'm working on that. That's, it's a $250 fine for these school bus camera violations. If they're caught on camera, if an officer catches them, it's a $570 fine for driving by a school bus with the lights on. So that's where we are.
Just piggybacking on Sarah's point, council staff recommends that we should hold the bill in addition to gathering more information. On the same note of the median divider, it's unclear, and recommending more definition on that. And whether or not the county would be required to fund and construct the dividers on state highways is still something that we need more information on as well.
Any objection to the Councilmember Katz?
No objection. I agree that we should hold it. So I would like to know whether or not, if an officer, Sarah just said that if an officer writes it, it's $570. Does the Montgomery County get any of that money? Or does that all go to the state?
No, if I understand it, well, at least for the school bus cameras, I'm not sure if the officer writes the ticket. I'm not exactly sure what happens with that revenue, but I'm sure an officer isn't writing in excess of 25,000 tickets. So of the 25,236 school bus camera tickets, that revenue goes to the county. We then, they say, remit whatever is needed to the school, to MCPS. They pay the vendor. The rest goes into our general funds.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but I know on regular traffic tickets, the state gets that money, not Montgomery County. And then the only other question I have is, what does it do whether or not there's right-of-way in order to be even able to do this?
I think that's the challenge that MCDOT points out, that logistically there could be there could just be engineering challenges for being able to do this.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Councilmember Glass.
So I appreciate the District 20 delegation for bringing this forward, because I think there's a lot that this is trying to unpack, quite frankly. And it seems to me that what this legislation is trying to do is figure out a way forward with the large roads, Georgia Avenue, Wisconsin Avenue, Colesville Road, that basically when a bus is stopped on one side, a car that is 6 lanes over going in the opposite direction will get a ticket because they haven't stopped because there's no median. And so it seems to me that this is a way to correct that law, but I might actually prefer that they correct the law than creating a secondary way to mitigate that law. And then also what's missing from this is our conversations about Vision Zero and whether this is what our Department of Transportation dollars need to do to make sure that there are 0 traffic deaths. So for all that reason, I have questions. I concur with the staff recommendation to hold off, but I think there's a lot more to unpack. And if the District 20 delegation wants to help those that have mistakenly gotten tickets for driving without seeing what's 6 lanes over, I think there's a different way of doing that. I yield back, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other objections to holding this? If not, we can move on. Great.
Okay, Kathleen? Kathleen?
Sorry about that. I was not unmuted. So thank you, Mel. Looking now at MC 422, this bill changes the way that our five district members on the Board of Education, Montgomery County Board of Education, are elected. As you know, although candidates for those 5 district seats must reside in each district, they are elected countywide, and the bill would change that so that they would be elected by voters in each county. Each district. I will share with you that this relates to a bill from last year. It became very, very controversial and also included controversy regarding Montgomery County because a bill that was introduced in the General Assembly first dealt with this same issue with commission counties. So you have 6 commission counties: Calvert, Carroll, Garrett, St. Mary's, Somerset, Washington. And I'll mention this again because I think it's relevant background for Montgomery County. And it would have done the same thing, that if there's a commissioner, if you're required to live in a commission district, but you're elected by voters countywide, the bill would have prohibited that and required that the commissioners be elected from the particular district. I mention this because it relates to racial equity and social justice issues. It was pushed by Democrats, frankly, who made arguments about particular counties in particular where African Americans were marginalized because they might get the majority vote in a commission district, but not countywide. And it became very controversial on the floor of the House because it did not apply to boards of education, for example, where, like Montgomery County, where we do this. There was a lot of controversy on the floor, pushing back. Why are you making us do it, but you don't do it yourself if you're on boards of education? So it was actually, that bill was amended in the House to apply to boards of education that have this kind of voting system. So I just share that with you because it was very controversial. It does relate to racial equity and disenfranchisement of minorities. I don't know so much here in Montgomery County because I don't know the particular districts. But that's the background, and that bill did get out of the House and did not get a vote in the Senate.
Okay. Any objections to holding this one? I agree. Very controversial, potentially. Okay.
Okay. To note, Council President, that the Board of Education plans to take a position on it this coming Thursday. So we should have that at least prior to our next meeting.
Terrific. Thank you. The county exec took a position without the Board of Education weighing in? Huh.
Yeah, he feels very strongly that the principles underlying the bill from last year apply here as well. It's good for the goose, it's good for the gander.
Okay. Councilmember Novato.
I think that we should wait to see what the Board of Education says. I think also it's kind of an interesting analysis because Montgomery County, as we have seen during the conversations with our own redistricting, of the 7 councilmanic districts, 6 are majority people of color. Obviously, could almost make the argument that running at large actually does not impose a disadvantage to candidates of color. So not every single county, the same principles are going to apply. And the rationale about how this has to do with equity, that also depends on the makeup of the county. So it's an interesting, I think, concept, just adding that as an observation, but obviously very important for the Board of Education to chime in, given that this is how it's been thus far, and it has to do because the Board of Education makes decisions, obviously, for the entire county.
Yep. Okay, I think we can move on.
Alrighty, moving on to MC 522. So this relates to this school student member on the school board scholarship. It's currently $5,000 if they serve a full year term. This bill increases it significantly to be equal to the cost of tuition, room and board, fees, etc. At a 4-year, I guess the average 4-year cost at the University of Maryland system, excluding their unique campuses, the global campus and the Baltimore campus. County executive does support this bill.
Councilmember Duando.
Thank you. I mean, I also agree with the general theme of today. We should hear from the Board of Education, but I just want to say personally, I think this makes a lot of sense, and it should be something we do to support the students. They work just as hard, and they go to school just like and make decisions, and their vote counts just like everybody else. And this would still be less than the not enough money that our Board of Education members already make, but I do think that this is appropriate in that it's tied to tuition. So I think the nexus makes sense. So hopefully we'll hear from the school board, but I just wanted to chime in. I do think this makes sense when we take it up. Thank you.
Yep. They do terrific work, and it's in line with legislation we passed years ago that Delegate Kaiser and I were pushing to give them a vote on the budget and then later the vote on the superintendent. So this is sort of in the vein of professionalizing that job and recognizing the many hours they put in. Okay, if there's no other comments, I think we can move on.
Okay, moving on to MC 1622, again relates to Board of Ed membership. And as you know, there are 2 at-large seats now on the Board of Education, and this increases it to 3. Oh, county executive, I apologize, by the way, has no position yet.
And council staff also recommends to hold until we hear from Board of Ed.
Okay. Any objections to holding? Great. I think we can move on.
Okay, moving on to MC 222, deals with unaffiliated voters. These are voters who have not affiliated with a party here in Maryland for voting purposes. Under current law, you have until 9 p.m. on the 21st day before an election day to decide whether you want to affiliate with a party for the purposes of a primary and voting there. And if you don't, you can't vote. This bill would require, in Montgomery County, and only for Montgomery County voters, require that they be allowed to show up during an early voting period or on election day, and be allowed to affiliate with a party that day and vote in the primary for that party's candidates. The county executive opposes this bill. He, under current state law, the parties themselves can decide whether to allow unaffiliated voters to vote in a primary, and he believes in the autonomy of the parties. And also, just from a statewide policy perspective, the way we're reading the bill, it seems to want to allow Montgomery County unaffiliated voters to vote for statewide candidates, which would be different than obviously what would be happening in other counties. So it seems more of a statewide policy than a local policy from the county executive's position.
Council staff has recommended to hold the bill. I'm just going to ask if analysis, our staff analysis can jump in just to provide any feedback there. But we have decided to hold the bill to gather more information before taking a position or recommending a position.
I think Ms. Boucher said council staff's analysis that this seems like it would be more of a state legislative initiative and rather than a local county bill.
Okay. I don't see any objections to holding this.
Okay, moving on to bi-county bills. The first one,
Kathleen, I'm sorry to object.
okay, no.
We may have overlooked MC 1322 voting methods.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
want to go back, Kathleen? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for catching that. So yes, this deals with, again, MP 1322 deals with ranked choice voting and approval voting. It's an enabling bill. It authorizes the county to require either of those types of systems for 9 offices. The county executive, county council, circuit court judge, state's attorney, circuit court clerk, register of will, orphans court judge, sheriff, and board of ed. And it's identical to a bill from last year that the county executive and county council supported. It was supported by the full House delegation, but did not get out of Ways and Means. And the county executive supports, as he did last year.
Council staff also recommends supporting the bill.
Move support.
Okay, Councilmember Raymer moves, Councilmember Friedson seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor of supporting this bill, raise your hand, please. Great. 1, 2. Councilmember Rice, are you listening still? Maybe not. Okay, unanimous among those present. So back to,
you want to, go back
Okay.
to.
All right, so now,
Yeah.
okay, so back to bi-county bills, PGMC 10022. This deals with the parking, this deals with the county council and the district council and changes the voting thresholds for various decisions that will apply to actions taken by the county council, district council after we become an 11-member council on December 5, 2022. And I've chatted with council staff, and it appears to us that, just doing the math, it maintains the same voting thresholds for the decisions that are outlined in the memo and in county law, county and state law.
Council staff supports the bill.
any discussion?
Move that we support.
All those in, okay, need a second?
Second.
Councilmember Glass seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Great. I think Councilmember Grice wants to be added as a yes to the last one, and I bet to this one as well. He'll tell me in just a second. Okay, Kathleen. Yes, Councilmember Friedson. Councilmember Navarro.
Can I just clarify, I guess, for staff, it's a recommendation from staff to support the bill. None of the staff supports the bill. Hate to be technical, but that's just the way that we always do it, just to avoid any confusion.
Great point. Okay, Councilmember Rice would like to be recorded in the affirmative on the last two. Councilmember, sorry, Ms. Boucher, you're the next on 101-22.
All righty, thank you. So this bill deals with the Park and Planning Commission. It's substantively identical to a bill that dealt with WSSC last year. So it would require for the Park and Planning Commission's open meetings, including teleconference calls, that that meet the open meetings requirements, that there be either a live video or a live audio, and that it be archived on the commission's website. Again, substantively identical to a bill last year that the county, the county executive supported and council did not take a position on. County executive supports again. I did send the bill out to park and planning staff and have not yet received any information back.
Okay, any discussion? If not, I think everybody's going to be fine holding this one. Okay.
Okay, so moving on to PGMC 10322, again, deals with all of our three bi-county commissions, the Washington Suburban Transit Commission, WSSC, Park and Planning. And I think, as you well know, each of those entities have to promulgate regs dealing with conflicts of interest, financial disclosure, and lobbying. And they must comply with state ethics law. This bill would actually require that each of those agencies certify to the State Ethics Commission that they are in compliance. And it essentially is modeled after provision that already applies to counties and municipalities. I ran it by Mr. Cobb at our Ethics Commission. He thought it, was absolutely appropriate to essentially ask these agencies to do the same thing that counties and municipalities currently do. WCC does not have a position. They formally don't have a position. And I reached out to Park and Planning and the Transit Commission. Didn't hear from Park and Planning, but the Transit Commission will be taking this up at their next meeting, which I think is December 12th. But they will be taking it up, and the county executive supports the bill.
Great. Any discussion? Okay. Anyone want to make a motion to support the bill? Or do we want to hold it? We're going to hold it.
Yeah, we're going to hold.
No objection. Great. Okay. I'm sorry. Was it just WSSC we still have to hear from? Or planning as well?
No, we have heard from WSSC, and they formally are not taking a position. Park and Planning and the Transit Commission, we have not yet heard from.
Okay. I doubt they'll make a compelling argument why they shouldn't have to certify they're in compliance, but I guess we shall see, and we have time. No need to rush it. Okay.
Mr. President, that is the agenda for today.
Any additions? Okay, great. If not, good work, everybody.
Talk to you next week. Great.
What? Yep.
We'll see you next week. Great.
We'll see you next
Thank you.
week. We'll see everybody else tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.
Right. Bye.
Bye-bye.